And we are back and we are live. This is great, man. Tony Cutillo, Heat Ratio Sports. This is Late Nights with Tony Cutillo, and we're just starting this. We started this last night and we did a little quick trial run. And it was very, very fun. It was very, very interesting. And just a little background so everybody knows my name is Tony Cutillo, founder of Heat Ratio Sports. We have a tremendous team here at Heat Ratio Sports. And I wanted to do some late night talk when it comes to Philadelphia sports talk and just regular sports talk within the entire sports landscape because I just felt like we needed it. I felt like we needed it, and that's where we're at right now. And I'm getting ready for another great show tonight. There's so many things that we're going to talk about tonight. We got into a lot last night, which was fantastic. We had a couple people join the program. If you're listening right now on Twitter, so I am going to go on right now and add the link. Right, I'm going to add the link right into the comments if you want to join. Right? Obviously, you can link, but if you want to join, I'm gonna put it. All you need is a phone, man. Like we're gonna treat this just like a radio station. Like I keep telling everybody, you just need to click on the StreamYard link right from your phone, and you could talk. I'll put you on. Get your own segment, and we'll talk whatever's on your mind. Right tonight, we're gonna talk a little Jalen Hurts concerns when we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, little Phillies free agent activity. Yamamoto signs with the Dodgers. So we talk about the Phillies. Are you concerned? And we had a little thing last night about the WWE talking about one of my favorite unsung heroes in Bayley, and she signs a nice new extension, multi-year deal. First reported by PW Insider with the WWE. So a lot of good things ahead. And I'm going to talk a little 1990 Chicago Cubs. I'm going to quote a fantastic Reuters article, mention her later. Hopefully one night get her on the program as well, because I think there's a couple names that are very synonymous with the world of baseball that we do not talk about enough. Now, again, right now, this is what you call a one-man show. Okay, this is a one-man show, and I love every second of it. Okay, so every now and then you might have to bear with me as I get some of the posts together, as I reference social media, because again, I want to bring the entire audience in to here. And don't forget, make sure you're subscribing to the Heat Ratio Sports YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Listen, big support for me and all the Heat Ratio member family. And again, like the big news and partnerships that we have with the Delaware Blue Coats. I just dropped brand new episode of the Blue Coats Beat today with me and Coach Joe Richmond. So check that out as well. That can be found wherever you get your podcasts at. So make sure you're following the Delaware Blue Coats as well. So let's get right into the Philadelphia Eagles saga again, but not more. Again, I don't want to talk about all the stuff that when you rehash about exactly what's going on, who it is, what the issue is. But I do want to talk about Jalen Hurts specifically, and the reason why I want to talk about Jalen Hurts specifically is because I feel like there's been many of changes that I've seen through this year. And I'm not talking about regression. I'm not talking about, Jalen Hurts' attitude. I'm talking about number one, we already know about the turnovers, but a lot of batted balls this year, right? A lot of batted balls, and we talk about bad reads. And the reason why I talk about that is because we've seen quarterbacks who may not had the biggest size in the world back in the day. One of them specifically in Drew Brees. Drew Brees was always one of the guys that never really had, that size. He had the arm, he had the cannon, but he really never had that size, right? But he was able to do so many different things. My man David checking in right now on YouTube. David Roska checking in says the Dodgers signed 12 years, another Japanese baseball star. Man, Dave, I feel like the Dodgers are just trying to buy themselves a championship and are just hoping one of these years it works. I mean, the amount of money that they're spending out there in Los Angeles is absolutely legendary. Look, Yamamoto said he wanted to go, to a national known commodity, a big time market. You already knew that the Dodgers, the Yankees were going to be the front runners for that. I know the Mets had also, dropped in, and gave him a contract offer. I know the Philadelphia Phillies gave him a contract offer. So again, I'm not surprised at this. I don't know if anybody else is surprised. I'd be curious to hear what you think. Can this, and again, just so everybody knows, I keep saying this just so when you pop this up and you're like, wait, what's going on? There's no video. I'm doing something new and I'm trying to treat this like a radio station, right? So, radio stations is no video, and you're talking and you're having a show, and that's what I'm doing right here. So, I'm putting the image up, and if you want to join in live, like David just commented. But also there is a link to StreamYard right there. That link will get you on the air just with your phone. You literally have to click it. Boom. I will put up on the screen where you're from, your location. If you want to, you post your social media profile, whatever it is, you let me know, and I'll give you your claim, to whatever minutes you need to have a conversation, because that's what this is. I mean, as we talk about, Philadelphia sports and national sports, David says it ain't going to happen. Dodgers will not win next year. And that was going to be the quick question. Do you think all the money will win the championship? Will it be enough? Right? Because I feel like the Dodgers always come up short. I don't know what it is, but they always, always, always come up short. All right. I don't know why. Right. I don't know why, but they do. Listen, I know the cliche is money just can't buy cohesion, money can't buy chemistry, but it is true though. Everything does have to come together at one point, right? Everything has to come together at one point. And sometimes, the green, listen, at the end of the day, the green isn't always, the best thing in the world, right? It isn't always the best thing in the world. So we're gonna find out. Dave says no. I'm curious. I'd like to hear what the audience thinks. Anybody else want to chime in? Get us on YouTube. Get us on Twitter. Get us on Facebook right now. Wherever you at, click the StreamYard link. Chime in. Let me know. Will the Dodgers be able to win next year, signing all these big time players? I mean, listen. Essentially, the top two players on the market, with Yamamoto and obviously listen, do we have to bring up Shohei Ohtani? I mean, you think about it, you're like, whoa, like this is a legendary offseason, for the Dodgers. It's crazy, man. It is crazy when you think about it, the kind of money that these players are getting. It really is. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, what Ohtani did was brilliant, obviously, by deferring and being able to do this kind of deal, right? I mean, it's the whole reason why the Dodgers were able to do this kind of deal, because they were able to defer so much money. And that's what's crazy, man. That, like, I don't think that gets enough attention. I know a lot of people think it's no big deal, but I do think it's a big deal. I do. And more on to come on that. If anybody has any, as we're listening to the show, we're gonna go until 1 a.m. This will be at 11 to 1 every night, Monday to Friday, possibly 11:30 to 1. I was finishing watching the Thursday night football game, so I definitely, I know it was kind of like over anyway, but I do like to watch the post game press conferences and hear the players talk. And I was listening to Matt Stafford and Kyron Williams, who's absolutely come out of nowhere. Kyron Williams is going to be a beast for many years to come. They just listen. You have an offense that has Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua and Kyron Williams. Listen, Tyler Higbee, a very, very serviceable tight end. I mean, Matt Stafford. Listen, all that team needs it's a little more of an identity. Maybe a couple pieces on defense. Depending on what Aaron Donald does next year, because everybody knows that he talks about early retirement, but. Listen, when you have an offensive play caller like a Sean McVay, who's absolutely brilliant. I've always said this before, and you'll know this by tuning in and listening to me on a daily basis. Again, this is Late Nights with Tony Cutillo right here on HRS Heat Ratio Sports, live right now, live streaming audio only. But there's a bunch of guys that I would always love to have calling my plays, and one of them would be Kyle Shanahan, another one is Sean Payton, and and another one is Sean McVay. I mean, I talk about those guys in nauseum about their offensive play calling capabilities. It's just, it's second to none. It's second to none, and they just need a defense. That's what they need. They just need a defense, and I think that that'll take them to the next level. But speaking of defense, we're talking about offense right now when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles and what is wrong with Jalen Hurts, what is wrong with this team. And I put down bad balls and bad reads. It's because, he is making some bad reads. And he is getting a lot of balls batted down. And I think a lot of that is twofold. And one is, the pocket is collapsing on him a little sooner than usual, and he's not used to that. So when that pocket collapses, it gets really tight windows trying to see over those big defensive linemen. I think they are starting to know his tendencies on which way he's going at what specific time. I know Troy Aikman, he alluded to him locking in on his receivers early and not looking them off the ball. That could be a thing that Jalen Hurts just maybe doesn't even know he's doing. Maybe it's just a lackadaisical approach indirectly because he was so good and it was so effortless last year. Listen, there's a lot to decipher when it comes to the offensive inadequacies of the Philadelphia Eagles this year, and this goes on a national level. It really does, and I continue to say, and I'll say it over and over again, about the Brian Johnson effect and what that effect has had, to the team, and even within the offseason, when they had Brian Johnson, in their sights a little bit, I think that was obviously pushed, and it was forced by Jalen Hurts, a guy who really didn't have these accolades and this experience. And again, what's the one thing you want to do? You always want to make your franchise quarterback happy, right? And obviously they figured that this was probably the best, for Jalen Hurts, and unfortunately it has not worked out. And there could be some animosity within the team. I know I was going back and forth a couple times. One of my good people on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it, and we were going back and forth with some voice messages, and he was saying the same thing. It's just it's very odd of what's going on, and I was like, listen, the biggest problem the Philadelphia Eagles have now is number one, you can't make a change this late. Right. I mean, they already panicked on the defense. And I think they panicked on the defense because, Sean Desai wasn't their guy. Right. Wasn't their guy. And I think, obviously we know what happened with Vic Fangio. That's who they wanted, who, if you don't know, is defense coordinator for the Miami Dolphins and doing a hell of a job out there. He was a defensive advisor for the Philadelphia Eagles. And because Jonathan Gannon was a bonehead, right, and didn't really give them the benefit of what he was doing, they got caught with their pants down, so to speak, and they couldn't hire Vic Fangio. He was already gone, and I think they went to the next best thing, which was Sean Desai, and I don't really even think they wanted him. That's why they brought Patricia in later on, because it was this, it was the save, right? This was the save all along, was Matt Patricia. So again, with Brian Johnson, it's really, really hard. Now, my man Jim checking in, a long time, always. Jim McGinnis, big time follower, big time supporter of the program, says Yamamoto to the Dodgers, 12 years, $325 million, not including the posting fee, right? So we don't even know what the posting fee is, just to, to be able to even talk to him in the beginning. So I'm curious to see what that is. But listen, 12 years, $325 million. So essentially, it's, think about $700 million for Ohtani, $325 million for Yamamoto. The Dodgers, you talk about money in Major League Baseball, man, and it is off the charts, like literally off the charts. And it just makes you want to think, like, okay, so if the Phillies, here's an interesting topic, because I do want to go full circle tonight. and I don't mind switching around, going back and forth because, I did talk about, you know, the Phillies' lack of offseason activity when it comes to free agency. And I brought that up specifically because obviously we know we extend Aaron Nola $172 million, which I think was actually, for Aaron Nola and for the Phillies was a good deal. I mean, you have to look at it as far as everybody always says, I didn't want Aaron Nola back. Okay, but if you look at it that way, I understand. I wasn't a huge fan, right? Wasn't a huge fan, but at the same time, who would you rather have? I keep asking that question. You can always say you don't want a guy back, but you still have to fill a roster spot. You still have to fill a competitive person in that role, and you have to look at what's available. And if you tell me it was going to be Blake Snell or Aaron Nola, I'd much rather go Aaron Nola because at least I know what Aaron Nola is. Listen, Blake Snell, you could talk about Cy Young, you could talk about, some of his unbelievable trends, but that's the problem. They're trends. He's up and down, he's hot and cold, right? He's good, he's bad, he's good, he's bad. You really never know what Blake Snell you're going to get. And if I had to spend $175 million, at least I want a guy I know is number one homegrown and a guy who understands the pressure situations that he's going to need to feel the pitch in Philadelphia. Now, Jim says, the money proves that Major League Baseball owners are taking in the cash. That listen, no lie there, man. Like, I mean, these owners are raking it in. So, I've made this point, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to continue to say it because one of my biggest reasons for doing the late night talks is I was a big WIP guy growing up. I really was. I don't listen to a lot of radio right now. I will be fully honest that, one of the few people that I do listen to that I really, really respect is Rob Ellis. I do listen to Rob a lot. And I listen to Rob because I feel like he doesn't have an agenda. And one of the few guys that isn't out there for clicks. I've said it before. I'll say it again. No fabricated arguments. He's a Delco guy. He's a Dallas sucks kind of guy. I mean, Rob is who he is. Rob is just talking, man. He's giving you his overall analysis and opinion, and that's what I love about Rob Ellis. Shout out to Robbie E. But I started this because I don't feel like there was enough of that going on the dial. And, I spent a lot of time in my career trying to get to that dial and then just to kind of figure out maybe that's not really what I wanted. This is what I wanted to be able to talk to a global audience. And that means when you're on, and you're on internet and you're on streams, you could talk to whoever you want. And it's great to get people from all over in different cities and different countries and, different nationalities and different fans. It is fantastic. And I love every minute of it. And the reason why I bring that up is because we're sitting here at 11:52 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast, and we have breaking news about 20 minutes ago about Yamamoto, and now we're talking about how much cash these owners are breaking in, and it brings up the topic of these content creators and writers that continue to get boned, all over the internet for these companies that they work for that are really getting lowballed and making pennies and peanuts for some very, very, very hard, uh, effortless. I shouldn't say effortless, very hard, impactful writings that they're giving us. And you see this kind of money being passed around to players, and the people that are covering the players are continually fighting for in a volatile market about where they're going to work, what network they're going to go to, how what job they're going to hold next. And I just think it's unfortunate. I think that in the internet world and the world of social media, I think the credibility from big time writers that really like to perfect their craft. Like I grew up on guys like Jason Stark. I still love reading Jason Stark in The Athletic, and one of the most informational, educational guys that you'll ever read. And yeah, I was a student of the game, and I think that everybody having a voice is not a bad thing, but unfortunately, sometimes those voices aren't always the ones that should be getting the accolades is my opinion. And I feel like, you know, being on this program, running this the way I want to run it, I'll be able to lay claim to the people that I think should be in the spotlight. And I want to go back historically too. I want to go back historically, whether it's locally, whether it's nationally. Tonight, later on, we're going to talk about the Chicago Cubs in the 90s. And the reason why I do that is because there was a great article posted today, specifically on two players that I'll mention a little later that we'll get to. Two players that I think aren't talked about enough. And for all the young athletes out there, or, the young sports media people that are, I had the great Sonny Hill on the Blue Coats beat. And again, make sure you're following the Blue Coats beat wherever podcasts are obviously uploaded. Google Play, Spotify. I mean, Spotify is probably the best place now. I think it's above Apple because they do such a fantastic job and so user friendly. But Sonny Hill, the first thing he said was latest and greatest, right? He kept saying Tony, Joe. The problem with the youngsters today, it's always about the latest and greatest, and we're not doing a good enough job, giving them the history of the game and kind of force feeding them. And I think that's another reason why I wanted to do this program late nights, because I used to listen to guys like Big Daddy Graham, and I really enjoyed the way he would go back and talk basketball and baseball and even talk music and bring back that old school kind of vibe, and I'm trying to bring that back as well. So again, I thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. I am Tony Cutillo, brought to you by Heat Ratio Sports. As always, I have a number of things playing for this show. But again, local, national, get involved, whether it's commenting right now on Facebook or X, whether it's commenting on YouTube. I posted a link on YouTube. I posted a link on Facebook. I posted a link on X. That link will get you on the air. No camera, just audio only. You don't need a microphone. You just need a phone. If you have a microphone, that's fine. You can join with your microphone as well. You could join with a speaker phone on an iPad. Doesn't matter. It's just like calling into a radio station, except guess what? You're going to have no wait times. You're going to get right on the air, and we're going to have a great conversation. So, again, if you want to get involved, StreamYard link is up there. I don't have a number. I'm going to make this as digitally friendly as possible. So, again, Jalen Hurts concerns. I don't know where we're headed with that. I really don't. I think, that this whole, spark of commitment, this whole spark of the leaks a few weeks ago. I heard what was it, Ross Tucker on the radio the other day, and I do like to listen when they have spots with some of the national pundits, and I listen to him, and he said, like I've always said, listen, there's a lot of smoke, right? So when there's a lot of smoke, we don't know how big the fire is going to be, but there's got to be a fire, right? There has to be a fire. And I don't know when it's going to come out, and we don't know exactly what it is. But anybody who's a fan of the Eagles, anybody who follows the Eagles, knows that something within that team is off this year. And it's just one of those things where we're probably not going to find out, until after the season, whether there be a scapegoat, I don't know what it is, but we definitely have to. There's a lot of confusion. My man brought up a great point today on X. Like I said, me and my man Starship go back, through DM. It's great voice messages back and forth, and he brought up a great point about watching some of Baldy's breakdowns and watching guys like AJ Brown and Quez Watkins running routes and kind of almost running into each other, and then looking at each other like, yo, what's going on here? Why are you running this way? I'm supposed to go that way. You're supposed to go that way, almost banging into each other. And then AJ stops and kind of gives up because it's the frustration sets in, right? The frustration sets in. And again, that's one of those things where, you have to really think about it, and you have to say to yourself, at that point in time, that something's not right. And again, if you want to get involved, if you have an idea of what may be wrong, what may not be right now, chime in whether it be through comment or StreamYard link. I'll get you live on the air right here on HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. But I'm going to parlay this over, to the next subject at hand. And we're going to go back around. And again, if you want to bring back up us, some Eagles topics, fine. If you want to talk NFL in general, that's fine as well. But I think, because we kind of got into this a little bit. Okay, we kind of got into this a little bit. The Phillies' lack of off season moves. There's been a lot of a sense around the team and nationally and locally that they were going to make this big splash. Everybody thought they were going to make this big splash. Now, I don't know what that splash was going to be. Right? I don't know what that splash is going to be because I look at this team and I say, okay, well, what's the one thing that we could probably use? Right? What's the one thing that we could probably use? And I think the obvious answer is a center fielder, a center fielder that can not only play defense but actually hit the ball with contact and make some things happen. And I think that's one of the things that we desperately need. And I think that was fully apparent, in the postseason this year. Going down deep into that playoff run. Listen, Brandon Marsh is a fantastic player, but I just don't think he's a. I've said this before. I don't think he's your starting center fielder. I think that you know he is a fantastic outfielder, but I just think he takes some bad routes to the ball. He gets a bad jump at times, and I don't think he's to the point where he can make that up. And as being a center fielder, that's something that could really, really hinder not only you but the team. And if you look at next to center field and left field with a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who's had a history of knee issues, and listen, we know, that we know the history, right? We understand. So, which makes him the prototypical designated hitter, right? Which means, Brandon Marsh could easily be your left fielder, which opens up the center field spot. And it's listen, I like Rojas. I think he showed me some grit and he's a fantastic fielder. But not being able to actually like bunt the ball and make contact. It was such a disappointment. And I don't even know if it's something that can be fixed, but the problem is right now you saw it, right? When you have these windows of opportunities and you watched it when he walked up with the bases loaded, and they knew this kid was absolutely flustered and lost up there at the plate, and they threw everything they could at him, and he didn't have a chance, right? And it's those moments, though, unfortunately, that you look at, and I'm not blaming the entire thing, obviously, on Rojas here, but what I'm saying though is it's those moments that you can't afford to let get away. And if you had more of a veteran, that was able to, create contact. I mean, listen, back in the day, right? He wasn't a center fielder, but you look at the Phillies postseason run in '07, right? In '08. And, you look at a guy like an Eric Bruntlett and you look at it and say, here's a guy who, listen, he knew how to bunt. He knew how to run the bases. He knew how to make contact. He wasn't the greatest player in the world, but, you were able to trust him at least to make contact with the ball. He wasn't going to go up there and swing at any pitch that, whether it be in the zone or out of the zone. He wasn't going to, try to bunt and pop it up or force himself at will into a ball that he has no business swinging at. And I think that's, one of the things that has to be talked about. And, we talk about that because you only have so many opportunities in this league to win. That you do. You have to, we talk about it with the 76ers all the time, right? We talk about it with the Joel Embiid. And we talk about it, you know, in essence about windows of opportunity for a big man that gives it his all, that is relied upon to be the most important player on the team in a sport where you have to run the floor back and forth, very physical, demanding sport. And we look at it and say, how many years do we really have? And it's the same thing. Listen, it's the same thing with the Philadelphia Phillies, right? Yeah, they don't have a Joel Embiid, but listen, Zach Wheeler is a top 5 pitcher in baseball. So, how many years you're going to be able to sit there with a top 5 pitcher in baseball? Not everybody is Max Scherzer, right? Listen, yeah, he's been hit with the injury plague now, but him and Justin Verlander, I mean, those 2 guys stood the test of time for the longest time, right? Not everybody can be those kind of guys. Not everybody can, be the Tom Glavines or the Greg Maddux and understand how to change your pitching philosophy, as you get older and be able to, paint the black, so to speak, with off speed pitches and, dropping an 84, 85 mile an hour fastball down 5 miles off your velocity, but you're really learning how to pitch more, not just to contact, but like I said, to hit those corners and hit those frames for your catcher. So again, you have to take that in consideration when we talk about the all season for the Philadelphia Phillies. And the other thing I think that we have to talk about is, and I'm under the school of thought that I think right now you have such a competitive team that we can say with ease that, as long as everybody stays healthy, we're always going to be right there all the time, which means there's no reason, in my opinion, for Dave Dombrowski, who has a historic history of trading away young players for win now pieces. He's not doing that now. And I know I heard whispers in Philadelphia, people talking about Andy McPhail. I mean, come on, man. Like, stop with that. I actually had to laugh a little bit because this is nowhere close to Andy McPhail. This is called, the Phillies are being very not cautious, but they're being very strategic in their approach. They're being very strategic in their posts. And again, if you want to get involved in the conversation right now, we're talking a little baseball with the Phillies' lack of all season moves. Obviously, Yamamoto signs with the Dodgers, 12 years, $325 million minus the posting fee. Reported all over. But for us, a good friend of the program, Jim McGinnis, he got us the numbers. My man David Roska checked in and right off the bat said the Dodgers signed another Japanese baseball star. It's trending. So if you want to get in and talk about that, we're talking about that right now. We're talking about how this, hinders what the Phillies do. And actually maybe even gives us some insight on what they're willing to do. Again, this is HRS Live, HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo, right here, Heat Ratio Sports. Get involved in the program by commenting. This is not your traditional stream, right? There is no video here. This is live, 100% audio. You see the sound wave up there. You see the live stream. It's very easy to get involved. If you're on X, you can comment through X. You can actually, I posted the link to get on the program. It's just like calling into a radio station. You literally hit the link, you type in your name. I'll let everybody know where you're from. I'll put your name up on the screen, and all you need to do is talk. And we have a conversation. Let me know your points. Let me know what you think. If you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan, if you're local, what do the Phillies do next? Is seeing this number of 12 years, $325 million. Now here's the thing, we have no idea what the Phillies offered, right? It said they put an offer in, right? But we don't know what that offer is. So, what I'm saying though is thinking about it realistically, does it mean that quite possibly they're willing to pay $300 million again for another player of that kind of talent? So you think about that. Bryce Harper, $330 million, right? You think about it, and now you have Yamamoto, $325 million over, double digit years. And it just shows that the Phillies are willing to do it on players they feel are worth it and could help this team get to the next step. Once again, listen, John Middleton wants to win that trophy, man. He wants that trophy once again. We know it. We understand it. And it's such a great time to be a Philadelphia fan because the ownership that you have, in this city, right? We could say what we want about ownership, but ownership, they're not unwilling to spend. They're really not. Now, are they out there spending money like the LA Dodgers? No, who does? Let's face it, man. Like who's spending money like the LA Dodgers? Nobody's freaking spending money like the LA Dodgers. Like ridiculous money from the LA Dodgers, right? So I mean, nobody's spending money from the LA Dodgers, but at least in this town, whether it be Jeffrey Lurie, whether it be Josh Harris, whether it be John Middleton, these guys they're spending the money. They're willing to spend the money to give the product back to the fan base that is the most passionate fan base in America, that is the most educated fan base in America, even though, we get on people's nerves sometimes and maybe we're a little over the top, but listen, that's not the entire percentage of the fan base, right? If you follow some of the biggest, whether it be tailgates like the 4th and John guys, whether it be Philly sports trips, right? You see E-Rock out there, you see Gail out there, you even see other personalities that whether they've been on the radio like Natalie Eggenoff, and you see Devin Caney, who is a fantastic, doing great things with Fox and WIP, very, very personable person. I will tell you, I do want to get into talks about specific media and highlighting specific people as well, who I think are doing fantastic things in this city that I think get overlooked, and I don't think they should be overlooked. I don't. And I will say I'm not that kind of person that just rip people down. It's one of the things I just don't do in this media space, right? We may have some fun here and there, and I know I went back and forth with the guy for 97.3, the locker room. Listen, I'll give him a shot. He has a program on Saturday afternoons at 12 p.m. I don't mind, man. Like I don't mind. Like I know what he was doing, and I think he tried, and then I kind of went full jigsaw, and he backed up a little bit and I backed up a little bit, and now we're liking each other's posts and talking. Look, it's all good, man. It's the way it works, right? It's the way it works. It's not an issue to me. But what I will say is I do think that some of the negative energy that way definitely has to stop, and that's another topic for another day. But we're going to take a quick break for about 2 minutes. We'll play a little music, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about 2 topics that I'm very excited to talk about. Number one, we're going to talk about our wrestling segment, where we talk a little Bayley, little damage control again, and we talked about her a little bit last night, and then tonight we have to talk about her because she just signed a new deal of her own, and we're going to get into a little Chicago Cubs talk from the 1990s, specifically an article that I want to highlight on this program by a fantastic writer that we need to see a little more about, and it give us more of an educational sense about the game of baseball that I think that we're missing from time to time. So I'll be back in 2 minutes right here on HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. And we are back live right here on HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. And again, comment, subscribe. Make sure you like the page. You subscribe to the YouTube page. If you're on X, comment, join in the program. The StreamYard link is there. If you're on Facebook, comment on Facebook or join in the program live with the StreamYard link. If I just posted up on Instagram with the link to the live stream, you can get in just like a phone call. All you need to do is click the link and talk into the phone, iPad, computer, or microphone, and we'll get you live. No wait times here. Listen, not everybody's up right now, and then you could be listening to this in the morning. If you're listening to this in the morning on replay, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the show. Now, last night, we had a really good discussion, with a couple people about the future of wrestling. And I'm a big wrestling guy. I got my start as a wrestling writer. Wrote for the fantastic site and community of EWN, ewrestlingnews.com. Ryan Clark does a fantastic job. At that time, the lead writer for EWN was a guy named Matt Boone, who did a fantastic job. And I got into that wrestling business because number one, huge wrestling fan, always been a huge wrestling fan, till this day, a huge wrestling fan. But I've always wanted to break into that type of business because, those guys, talk about blue collar. I mean, being able to be on the independent scene and being able to, you know, formulate some kind of plan. You talk about going through adversity and going through trials and tribulations and going through constant rejection. I mean, these independent wrestlers, in order to make a name for themselves, they really go through a hellacious journey that definitely should be documented a lot more than it is. And I figure, you know what? I want to be able to elevate those personalities, just like I kind of want to do tonight. And on this program, again, this program Monday through Friday. I listen. I know it's a slow build, right? I understand that, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I've been building my entire life. But I love the microphone and I love being able to talk with an audience. And I love being able to talk professionally and educationally and nothing's fabricated. And that's why I did this. So get involved Monday to Friday, either 11 or 11:30 to 1 a.m. We're going to be here right here on Heat Ratio Sports YouTube page. HRS Live, Late Nights with Tony Cutillo. And we're going to have other content on the page. Like, you're not just subscribing to Tony Cutillo, you're subscribing to Al Griffith, the 2-minute warning. You're subscribing to Dave Gleckner or Mark Tomasini for Fourth and Go. You're subscribing to The Final Judgment. You're subscribing to a new youth sports podcast that's going to be coming up. You're subscribing to the Blue Coats Beat, the official podcast of the Delaware Blue Coats. There's a lot of big things going on right now. Heat Ratio Sports, which is a really, really cool thing, knowing that I started this so many years ago. But to get back to the wrestling, I started the indie circuit spotlight. If you actually Google right now, if you're listening to this program either live or on replay, if you Google Indie Circuit Spotlight EWN, you're going to see Tony Cutillo's interviews come up with people like a Kiara Hogan, Deanna Perrazzo, Jordan Grace. I was able to really start to elevate Renee Michelle. Anybody, people I could find, that I really gravitated towards. And a lot of them, honestly, were the women, because I felt like the women did not get enough accolades for a lot of the work that they did in the ring. I'm a huge Deanna Perrazzo fan. Huge. Got her start in the Monster Factory, right? She's Jersey's own, which if you're Jersey, you're kind of Philly, right? She did a lot of work at the Monster Factory. She's wrestled the 2300 Arena, which if you don't know what the 2300 Arena is, that is the home of ECW. which again, if you're not an ECW fan or whenever ECW fan, you don't know what you were missing out on, right? So that's why I started the indie circuit spotlight, and it continued to evolve. And then I got more in my fantasy line of work and sports betting and local sports, and I kind of gravitated away. But I've always been an avid supporter and watcher over the years. I've done a lot of press tours, with TNA, with Impact Wrestling, with NWA, with WOW, lot of different wrestling organizations. And I continue to do that, right? Continue to do that. And I love every minute of it. And, that brings us to, one of the most underrated, unsung heroes, in the World Wrestling Federation. I know it's World Wrestling Entertainment, but I still call it the World Wrestling Federation. And that's Bayley. We talked about Bayley the other night, and we talked about her her rise to fame, so to speak. She had a listen, she was the macho man, right? She was the macho man. When you think about it, the female version of the macho man. She even had the strings coming down, right, from her arms. She was that female version. And she had the kids crying, and she was the hugger, right? She was so she really broke into the business, as the most over athlete. And if you remember, people couldn't wait. They couldn't wait to see Bayley, on that top stage, right? And she did. She had some fantastic battles, with people like Sasha Banks, right? We know the history. We know the history. Sasha made somebody cry, right? We know all that. They had a great feud, man. They had a great feud. And they're still, listen, they're still to this day, right? They're still best friends, right? Still best friends. And that's fantastic, man. That's what's pretty cool about that. And I bring it up because Bayley had to decide what was going to be next for her. She was the characters eventually, in the WWE, they run their course for the most part, right? For the most part, not everybody, but for the most part, they run their course. And every now and then you have to decide, to pivot, right? You have to decide to pivot, and Bayley came up with a fantastic idea about turning heel. And if you've never heard the story, go read about it. It's pretty fantastic that she's such and I don't use this term lightly because a lot of people use it, but when you hear student of the game, Bayley is a student of the wrestling game. She really is. And what I mean by that is not only is she a student of the wrestling game, she's a student of the actual mind games that go into the wrestling persona, right? The storytelling aspect, which is huge, right? We hear it all the time right now. We hear about, Cody Rhodes wanting to finish the story, right? That's the storytelling, the bloodline. It's storytelling, right? We all know about the storytelling. Well, Bayley is really a student of the game when it comes to storytelling. And, when she pitched the heel kind of character, it listen, it was, to me, brilliant. I said this last night. I want to say it again. We all remember, who's the third man? Who's the third man? Halloween Havoc, right? You can hear Bobby Heenan, rest in peace to the great Bobby Heenan. You can hear his voice right now. Who's the third man? Who's the third man? And all of a sudden, you see the Hulkster come down, and Hulkamania's going wild, and he jumps in the ring, and he turns into the NWO. He turns to the one guy who you thought would never, ever, not to, that's a little Chris Jericho reference if you're not a big wrestling fan, but a guy that you never thought would turn heel did in Hulk Hogan. And that is, to me, almost on the same level or I should say, vice versa. That Bayley turning heel is almost on the same level of that, in my opinion, only because Bayley was that over when it comes to a face. She really was. I never thought in a million years that Bayley would be a heel. And not only is she a heel, but she's one of the best heels we've ever seen. Male, female, you name it. She's one of the best heels we've ever seen. To the point where I don't think she'll ever be able to go back to a face again. She's been that good. She really has. She's been electric. She's been fantastic. I can't go on enough. I mean, what she's done, not only to elevate damage control, not only to elevate Dakota, EO, even right now, in one way, Asuka, right? Asuka was, you know, I felt like she was kind of getting lost in the shuffle in WWE, and here comes Bayley, who just, off a pretty serious ACL tear, to really start to build this tremendous, dare I say, Hall of Fame-esque career in the women's division that, sees people like the man, Becky Lynch. Now, I'm going to get into that one night too, because I'm not a huge Becky Lynch fan. I may have a lot of non-supporters with that statement, but it's I don't do takes on here. I just give you my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm not a big Becky Lynch fan. I don't think she's got a great ring style about her. I don't think that she has her moves really pack the punch, so to speak, like a Charlotte Flair. I just I think she's forced. She had a moment, I feel, where they tried to make her into the female version of a Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I really don't think it really took the shape that they thought it was going to be. But again, that's going to be a topic for another night. But to get back to Bayley, I think this is, you see what's happening right now within WWE. Again, this is Late Nights, HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo, right here, brought to you by Heat Ratio Sports. Make sure you're getting involved. You're liking the channel. You're subscribing to the channel. The best way to interact is two ways. You can comment by ways of wherever you're listening and not watching. See, you're listening and not watching. So, you can turn down the dial and pump up the volume on the stream, and you can listen live right here. You can get involved in the program too. I've tweeted out. I've been on Instagram with the StreamYard. It's called StreamYard. If you're not familiar with StreamYard, a lot of people are, but a lot of people still aren't. It's not a big deal. It's literally a link that you're going to click on, put your name in, and boom. You're on your phone, your iPad, your computer. It doesn't matter. And even if you have a studio set up, you can use that as well. But, we're going full audio. We get you in the program. No wait lines, no hold times, no nothing. If you have a point, I'd love to hear it, whether it's about Bayley signing a new WWE deal, whether it's about a Phillies, Yamamoto, what you think about him, any kind of NBA talk that you want to bring up. We go full circle around here. And, this is going to be a Monday to Friday show from 11 or 11:30 to 1 a.m. So make sure you keep it locked right here on this channel, Heat Ratio Sports. But to get back to Bayley, you see what the WWE is doing. They're starting to make those commitments, those 3 to 5 year commitments to the nuts and bolts, of the next era, right? And I have to commend, what Hunter has done. You want to say Paul Levesque, you want to call him Triple H, you want to call him Hunter, but no matter what, what he's been able to do is really bring back, that positive reinforcement energy within the WWE. That morale was not great for a long time. It really wasn't. Just because Vince McMahon is an evil genius, so to speak, when it comes to creative and a very, very savvy businessman, doesn't mean that he always has the best interests, of the wrestlers at heart. And I think a lot of that, did come, into play over the years, especially the latter years. And I think that if you don't know this or not, listen, these wrestlers, the way that they're on the road, the amount of shows when they're not a part-time performer that they need to commit to is really it's a relentless schedule. It doesn't let up. And Triple H, when Vince, how do I say that? It's almost like a ball player, right? It's say a football player. So like when you have a D'Amico Ryans who is a head coach, right? When you have that guy who's a head coach that was also not far removed from being a player, he understands the requirements of the physical attributes of the game. He understands, and now he's a coach, so now he's a little more I wouldn't say he has more sentiment towards these players, when they may need a break, or when the schedule needs to be cut down a little bit, or certain things from that aspect. And I think that's what you're getting right now in WWE with Triple H. One great example is giving these wrestlers, time off and his word to be with their family during the holidays, for recording tapings and not making them live. That's something Vince McMahon never did. He never did. And again, this comes from number one. This comes from Hunter being not that far removed from a rigorous WWE wrestling schedule. It also comes from him from having some life-changing events and being a father and understanding the family commitment and the moments and the memories that you need to have. And I think that's one of the most important things that we see right now. And I think the attitude is changing within the WWE. And I think, that is, it's contagious. And I think that you'll start to see, listen, there's no other reason in the world why CM Punk is back in WWE. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't just listen, it was Triple H. It was Triple H. Triple H understanding that, you're going to hate this and people are going to know where it comes from. Right. And I wasn't a huge, McMahon Helmsley era. I wasn't a huge, the authority, but what's best for business. Right. Triple H knows, you heard him. What do the fans want? And obviously he's not going to give them everything, right? It doesn't mean they're going to make the decision based on the fans. If that's the case, then Sami Zayn would have been a world champion, right? And beat Roman Reigns. LA Knight would have been a world champion and beat Roman Reigns. But what he's done is he's given everybody, that 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 perception that he understands, number one, the commitment for families, and number two, what's best for business as far as mending relationships and bringing people in, like a Cody Rhodes, right? Like a CM Punk. No, it will not be a Sasha Banks, right? Sasha Banks is, she's, listen, you can't, we talked about this last night, just throw all the Sasha Bank rumors to, throw them out in the water because they're not going to happen. I love Sasha Banks, the legit boss. I think she is undoubtedly, unfortunately, she could never stay healthy enough. But she had a lot of concussions, but her in-ring performance and her promos were second to none. Like, her whole character, listen, coming out in the Escalade with the money signs, on her glasses, and everything she did, it was gold. It was. But at the end of the day, you do have to understand, it's enough to value, but I think Sasha overvalues herself just a little bit. And I hate to say that because I want everybody to get the biggest value possible, whether you're a superstar or you're a radio host, it doesn't matter. But I just think that she overvalues herself just a little bit, just a little bit. But and again, it brings us back to Bayley that, I think you will see her carry the women's division. Eventually you're going to see her carry the women's division. I think that they've given her ample time to get back to full strength. I think that was the whole reason why, bring her out at WrestleMania, start Damage Control, kind of let her sit behind the scenes as she continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Listen, she had a horrific ACL injury, man. Like it was a really severe tear. And when you do that, we know how long it takes other athletes to come back, from injuries like that. Right now, she's dealing with the same thing. So again, I think it was brilliant. She signs a new deal, and listen, I think that we all are going to be good for it because Bayley Bayley is good for business, right? Bayley is good for business, and that's you can I'll argue with you until you're blue in the face. I really will, because Bayley is definitely good for business. Um, I want to pivot a little bit, for our final segment of the show. Again, you're watching HRS live. This is Late Nights with Tony Cutillo right here on Heat Ratio Sports. Make sure you're following the page, you're subscribing to the page. This is literally, there are so many things ahead for this program. I can't wait. I can't wait to announce in 2024 some of the sponsors that are already lined up for this show. This is really going to be a program that's going to be, I'm telling you, will be known all over, and we're going to build a great community here, where people can, voice their opinions and be heard and not be shut off, or not be ripping people down. Just let's just have some great, fantastic sports talk, and we're going to learn too, because right now what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little 1990s 1990s Chicago Cubs baseball. And I'm going to tell you why in a second we're going to do that. Because number one, it's not because of Henry Rowan Gardner. You know who Henry Rowan Gardner is? Rookie of the Year, fantastic Disney movie, right? Jed Stedman, I think that was his name, the pitcher that he was trying to emulate. But again, I bring this up because I want to take us back. I want to take us back, and I want to bring up some great stuff from the historical side of sports. And one of these articles, and again, I'm going to try. One thing about this program is this is going to be Tony talking all the time. I do have an idea. It's not going to be easy to get people on after midnight, but I do want to see if I can get some guests on. We are going to book some guests for the program, and I can't wait. I do have some people in mind, but I also want to highlight some people that maybe you don't know, and one of those people is Sarah Sanchez. You can follow her on X at BCB_Sarah. And I'm going to put the article in it on the website, which is bleedcubbyblue.com, that she wrote. And it's a fantastic article. And I'm going to read you some things from it that I think that you will really, really like. And here it is. I just put it in the comments on YouTube. You'll see it. Go follow it. Go check it out. It's a fantastic article. And, right off the bat, the reason why I like it, it's called a Cubsmas Advent Calendar. It says Sean Dunston and Mark Grace are Cubs Hall of Famers. Dunston and Grace Induction Day was a great day at Wrigley Field. And again, this is by Sarah Sanchez. So make sure you check her out. She's a fantastic writer for bluecubbyblue.com. And the reason why I bring this up is because I love going back in the history of sports, and bringing up documentation and memories and statistics that people don't bring up enough. And two things before I start giving some insight to this article. Two things that really, when I saw this article right away, and I'm a huge baseball fan. I will say I'm not going to say I'm a baseball historian, but I do feel like I'm a sports historian, because I do like diving deep into different eras, and I have a really, really vast memory of the knowledge of the game. And again, if you want to get involved, what are your favorite 1990 Chicago Cub memories? If you're listening and you're from Chicago, let me know. If you're a baseball fan and you're listening, type them in the comments. If you're listening to this on replay, type them in the comments, right? If you want to join live right now, very easy to do. Hit the StreamYard link and we could talk anything we talked previously about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, Philadelphia Phillies Inactivity, Yamamoto, Bayley signing a new WWE deal. And now we're talking Chicago Cubs. Whatever you want to talk about, we are in to talk about it for another 15 to 20 minutes. But I bring this up because the first thing I saw when Sarah tweeted this article out was, or first thing I thought about, I saw Sean Dunston and I said, wow, what an arm, right? First thing I said, Sean Dunston, rocket arm. That's what I remember. Mark Grace, one of the sweetest swings you'll ever remember in sports as a left-hander, right? So when you think about sweet swings, obviously everybody says Ken Griffey Jr., right? But that was in my opinion, a different kind of swing because he was such a pure power hitter, right? Mark Grace was make it seem effortless. He really did. Like, when you're a left-handed batter and you can swing, and no pun intended, but you could swing gracefully and make consistent contact on the ball. It's second to none. I mean, I remember the 90s, right? And I remember the early, I would say late 80s when, you got Will the Thrill Clark in San Francisco, who was had a great swing from the left-hand side of the plate, right? So but I look at Mark Grace as being one of the best. And looking at this article, here's one of the, why I love to read articles like this, okay? Because it really breaks out some really impressive stats. So listen to this clip of the article. Again, this is on bleedcubbyblue.com. Sarah Sanchez. Again, make sure you go follow her. I say this all the time. Make sure you go follow her at BCB_Sarah. I linked the article to this. Now listen to this few sentences about Mark Grace. Mark Grace led the 90s in hits and doubles. He put up a 303, 383, 442 slash line for his career. Perhaps even more impressive, now this is the key, even more impressive, he never posted a season with more strikeouts than walks in his 16-year career in Major League Baseball. He also never struck out more than 10% of the time in his career. His strikeout rate is 6.9% compared to an 11.6% career walk rate. And here's the stick. The only qualified hitter in Major League Baseball to post a lower strikeout rate over a single season last year than Grace put up across his career was batting title winner Luis Arias, who struck out 5.5% of the time in 2023. And to be clear, Arias already struck out more than 10% of the time in 2021. His career across 5 seasons so far is 7.5% above the 6.9% of Mark Grace. And that just, again, I love reading those things. I love them because that just shows you what we don't look at and what we forget, right? How good players like Mark Grace were, right? How good players like Mark Grace were. Now, when you talk about Sean Dunston, here's a number 1 draft pick in 1982, right? Number 1 draft pick in 1982, right? But the best thing about him was his arm, right? The best thing about him was his arm. So again, I understand he made some errant throws. Okay. He played in the big leagues for 17 years. It always says he lacked accuracy, but it was an absolute cannon of an arm. So again, these are things that we think about, and I want to bring more, highlights to some of these articles and players because, like I said, I just think it's so important. I mean, you go back to '90s baseball, and I know everybody, listen, we all want to talk about. Well, I don't want to talk about it because I'm not a big steroid era kind of guy. I'm not that person. And I mean, I know we're talking about the Cubs, right? So obviously you're going to right away go look at Sammy Sosa, right? And I get it, and I understand. Okay, but it is part of the game. It went on. It is what it is. It's over. It's done with. Everybody needs to, just settle down and relax. Okay, I know all the baseball purists want to go crazy, but I can't wait to have that conversation on this program because I think that might be a topic on its own for an entire hour and a half to 2 hours because I have such a stance about why Barry Bonds should have all the accolades in the world. And a lot of people are going to argue with that, but that's fine. We'll get into that another day. But just going back to the 1990s of the Chicago Cubs, I mean, you look at a franchise who's had some historic players, right? Some historic players. I mean, listen, you can go back, obviously Willie McCovey, but you talk about, again, this is why I say I'm a baseball historian, sports historian, because I like to spitball at certain things. But you go back, and obviously, you have the Ryan Sandbergs of the world, right? Listen, Greg Maddux, where he started, right? You remember that, Lee Smith was one of the all-time greats, from the bullpen. You had Sean Dunston, you had Andre Dawson, right? You had Andre Dawson out there, and and again, when you look at these teams and you go back and you think about it, and sometimes it feels like such a distant memory. It really does because records continue to be broken. But if you notice, the records that are always broken are the ones that you know are like power records, right? Like home runs and things of that nature. But these percentages, these ratios that tend to be broken, with more consistency, I think they're more special. I do, and I think that they're more special because when you go back and you look at some of these talents, the game has changed so much that the ratio is so much different now than it was then because the rules and the parameters of the game changed, and for lack of a better term, they get a little easier, right? They get a little easier. Strike zones changed, speeds changed, bats got bigger, bats got stronger, players got stronger. So a lot different from looking at a guy that at one time, listen, at one time you had guys like Rick Russell start an all-star game. You had guys like Kevin Mitchell, who wasn't the most biggest specimen in the world out there hitting bombs, and a guy like in the Mets, like Kevin McReynolds, and you look at these guys' builds, it's nothing like you see now with a guy like an Aaron Judge is just like an absolute beast. So it's a little bit different. It loses its luster, so to speak. But when you go back and you look at some of these players, and what they were able to accomplish, look at guys like a forever guy like a Todd Helton in Colorado. You look at the MVP years, of certain players, that like whether it be a Manny Ramirez, whether it be a Larry Walker, whether it be a triple crown chases with like a Gary Sheffield. Right. I mean, like some of these players just put up some ridiculous stat lines. And, when you go back and you watch, I think we forget, right? Because we're always talking about the latest and greatest. Like my man Sonny Hill said from our interview on the Blue Coats beat a few days ago, the latest and greatest. Like everybody in basketball talks about Steph Curry, but nobody goes back and looks at the history of the game. Nobody goes back and watches a guy like a Pistol Pete. Nobody goes back and looks like a Big O. Nobody goes back and watches the dominance of a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before there was a Shaquille O'Neal, right? Before there was a Tim Duncan, before there was a Joel Embiid, right? There's so many times that we forget, how dominant these guys were. And again, that's why I brought up this article from Sarah Sanchez. And again, make sure you're giving her a follow at BCB underscore Sarah on X. She posts a lot of great articles for bleedcubbyblue.com. And like I said, her latest, breaking down the 1990s of the Chicago Cubs, I think was a really a remarkable look at two unsung heroes of that organization and of Major League Baseball that obviously, somebody wrote a comment, the boys of Zimmer, right? Of manager Dom Zimmer, those boys that people I don't think talk enough about. And I will, she writes for Pitcher List as well, which is a fantastic website. I'm going to try to get Sarah on this program after the holidays. I'm not trying to book any guests during the holidays because obviously it is the holidays, and it's going to be time for family. You will not get a program tomorrow night on a Friday night. Tonight because it's family time. I'll look to resume on Tuesday and to keep this going. But I wanted to get some preliminary shows out of the way and try to get the audience involved on what to expect. And again, before I get out of here, I want to thank David for checking in tonight. David David Rosca, who I know is a subscriber, been follower for a while. He's got a great Montreal Expos old school logo, which makes me laugh because I loved that uniform. He brought in the Yamamoto talk. My man Jim McGinnis from Philadelphia, Philadelphia sports guy, broke in to the conversation, giving us the numbers. Thank him for that. I had some people check in on X, throw me a couple Instagram DMs, which is pretty fantastic as well. We have a good base on this show so far. It's trial, how we're going to do this. And, not everybody can be up late at night. But that's the great part about digital media, because guess what? If you follow the page, all you need to do is on your ride to work in the morning, you start on your Bluetooth and let it stream. And again, if you're listening to this off hours on replay, make sure number one, you're subscribing to the channel, and you're dropping that like button. And again, drop a comment, man. Let me know what you think on any of these topics, whether it be the Eagles, the Phillies. You have a question. I'm a big engagement guy. If people have followed me over the years, I love engagement. I love engagement on social media. I love engagement through email. Listen, very, very easy. Tony at heatratiosports.com. Emails are open. Send me an email. Let me know what you're thinking. You have an idea for a segment of the show. Let me know. If you want to be a part of the show, let me know. I already have 3 to 4 sponsors lined up. And when I say sponsors, people get scared, right? And I will tell you this, that I'm I run my own PR company, Rise and React Media. Go check me out, riseandreactmedia.com. Give me a nice review of what you see. If you would do so, be much appreciated. Do a lot of media work for a lot of clients, and I'm very, very understanding of budget limitations and quality and return on investment, right? I understand that. So when I say sponsors, there's so many different ways that we could talk about sponsors, but just know, sponsors, friends of the program, ways we can help each other. That's number one, what I'm all about. I really am. And do also know this in closing. If you're looking and you have a really good idea, for the local scene, or a historic look for a show, a podcast, right? This doesn't have to be video, right? We can create audio podcasts. I love the podcast. I think that's a big thing. We can give you that platform here at Heat Ratio Sports. And what I could do is not only give you that platform, give you a supportive team, and also help you promote that podcast and give you ways, through media, to start building a media resume as well. Those options are available for a very, very small fee that you may be surprised about. And again, those small fees will just help me. Number one, they will help me cover the software that I'm using. Number two, cover some great giveaways that we plan on doing, whether it be tickets to games. I'm going to talk to multiple sports teams about getting fan interaction segments. Live interviews. There's going to be a lot to this that's just getting started. So I just want to at least throw that out there. But I really appreciate everybody's support. It's going to be something new, but I will tell you, the name HRS Late Nights, the show with Tony Cutillo, will be something that is not heard anywhere else. And we're going to continue to build this. We're going to continue to get bigger. We're going to continue to offer up new segments and new ideas. But one thing is going to stay: the consistent content and the credible content that we employ. Everybody, listen, have a fantastic holiday. Like I said, will be no show tomorrow night. My weekends will always be off. And Monday is Christmas. So, I look back to resume on Tuesday, the 26th, and find out what everybody's thinking. What happened over the weekend? How was your holiday? And again, make sure everybody, I said this on a program the other night on our NFL Draftcast on Win Daily. Make sure you give us a follow at Win Daily Sports, windailysports.com, for all your sports betting and DFS needs. If you think you need somebody else to drive, if you think you may have had too much at one of your celebrations, you probably did. So make sure that you use that phone, you use that Uber, you call a friend, even if it's a complete stranger, that you run into. It's to help you get to where you need to go before you harm yourself or somebody else, because it's the last thing that we all need is another innocent life either lost by an unfortunate accident, or put away because of an unfortunate accident. So again, happy holidays. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, have a joyous holiday season, and we will catch you back here next Tuesday for some more HRS Late Nights with Tony Cutillo.